Jehovah's Witness leadership just released the 2025 Elders Book. At first glance, it looks softer, lighter, more about shepherding with love. But this secret manual, a book no congregation member is allowed to see, still holds the same rules. The harshest policies, they weren't erased. They were buried in appendices. And worse, some of what's inside directly collides with the law. Today, we expose criminal acts hidden in the Elders Book. When we think of their long time shunning and disfellowshipping, well, it hasn't changed. In 1991, disfellowshipping meant one thing: shunning, walk away, you're cut off. By 2018 and 2024, the same rules were written out plainly: judicial committees, appeals, and announcements. Now, in 2025, it looks different. The harsh rules are tucked away in Appendix A. The main body talks about encouragement and returning and shepherding. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But nothing has changed. Walking away is still treated as disassociation, which means shunning. Same punishment, just hidden in the back. We'll take a look at that. Now, Section 2, blood, military, and conscience issues. These rules, they still remain absolute. Blood transfusions are still forbidden. Military service is still a hard line. Birthdays and holidays, they're still condemned. But some things are repackaged as conscience. For instance, recently, toasting. Here's a toast to what? What can you toast to? So maybe wedding toasts and stuff, but not everything. They made that clear. When it comes to nationalism and holidays like that, no toasting. So there's rules behind. It's up to your conscience. Beards. Well, after decades and decades since Rutherford, no beards, all of a sudden beards are okay. But there's rules. You have to have them trimmed exemplary if you want to have parts. And they took away the jacket and ties in some countries and lands, and even here, it's conscience, if you don't want to wear a tie and a jacket out in the ministry. But they're still expected if you're giving parts. So not everything goes away. Education, that's recent. They softened it from dangerous to balanced choices. Your conscience, right? But higher education, it's still discouraged. It's not encouraged. Let's be clear about that. So this is the whitewash. Rules reframed as conscience, while social pressure still enforces conformity. A lot of this is because of the outside pressure they're getting, especially this beard thing for decades. So Section 3, obedience to the faithful, discreet slave. We talked about that a lot in the 2024 Elders Book. It was right out there: obey the faithful and discreet slave. You'd obey that over the Bible, over anything you think you don't. You obey the faithful, discreet slave. Well, in 2025, the same command is softened. It's blended into a list with humility and kindness. But the message hasn't changed. Obedience is still required. And Section 4, the CSA receipts. The most disturbing section is how Watchtower redefines CSA. Let's look at the page together. We're going to do that in a bit here. And from a congregational standpoint, CSA does not refer to a minor who is a willing participant with an adult, only a few years older, you see. Minors sexting one another or viewing illegal material involving minors, which may be handled with strong counsel. So you could be an adult and you could be having improper discussions with a minor, a teenage minor. Watchtower doesn't see this as a huge deal. Strong counsel. So from the Watchtower standpoint, a groomed teenager can be labeled as a willing participant. And someone viewing illegal abuse material may not even face a committee. just strong counsel. And that's the criminal act. So the world calls these things crimes, and Watchtower calls them sins. That's the big difference. The world calls CSA crimes, even having the material, accessing the material. It's a crime. But you see, Watchtower views it differently. They view it as a sin, and they can handle it in-house with counsel. They don't need to involve the outside world. So what's happening on the global law clash? Well, the world doesn't agree with Watchtower. Canada, the Criminal Code 163.1 states accessing or possessing CSA material is an indictable offense. And I'm not going to say what CSA means on here because we get strikes against us from YouTube. So you guys can read between the laws. We all know what CSA is. It's abuse with children. So in the U.S., that's illegal. The U.S. 18 U.S.C. 2252A, any possession or access is a felony. It's a crime. Any possession or access. So if you have access to these sites, you're a Jehovah's Witness, and you think it's not a big deal. You just get some counsel. It's not. If you get caught, it's a crime. It's a felony. And if you're in Australia, Criminal Code 1995 says up to 15 years in prison. And the EU Directive 2011-93, all member states must criminalize CSA and abuse imagery. So, and globally, more than 187 countries outlaw this under the UN Convention on the Rights of a Child. So everywhere else, the law calls it a crime. Watchtower calls it conscience. So you might ask, how did they get away with this? It's all over the world. It's against it. It's a felony. It's a crime. I know here in Canada, I think the RCMP monitors internet use searches for this kind of material. They can pick up on that. That's how closely this stuff is watched in many countries around the world. So how does Watchtower get away with it? Well, by hiding behind clergy privilege, where reporting isn't mandated. By redefining crimes as sins handled by committees, not courts. And by using corporate shell games like they did in Montana, claiming local elders act independently. They were called out on that one, and they lost. And by settling lawsuits with non-disclosure agreements, sealing up the evidence. And that's eventually what they did in Montana. They settled it out of court. They didn't want to have this go into court, so they could seal up the evidence. And by claiming religious freedom as a shield. And that's what they're doing in Norway and countries all over the world. So this isn't protecting children. Folks, this is obstruction of justice disguised as spirituality. So you might ask, why does this matter? Because we hear a lot about it. Well, it does matter, because every line in this secret book, the Secret Elders book, represents real lives, real people. These are elders that are programmed, and then they program the rest of the flock. Shunning tears families apart. The blood ban has cost lives, and redefining CSA leaves victims unprotected while predators are shielded. So, folks, this just isn't about doctrine. It's about people. It's about children, families, and it's about justice. So the 2025 Elders book, it might look softer, but look closer. The rules didn't disappear. They were buried. Disfellowshipping, shunning, blood bans, obedience to the governing body, and the minimization of CSA, it's all still in there. They call it shepherding. They call it conscience. But when you read their secret book, you realize Watchtower isn't following the Bible or the law. They're hiding criminal acts in plain sight. So keep living your life with love. We'll see you in the next video. And we're going to transition off into looking at these elders' book. We'll see you in a bit. Okay, so here's all the elders' book. This is the latest one, Shepherding the Flock of God. Now I'm going to go back to this one. This is back in 1991, even earlier. I think it goes back to 1971, even this one. Pay attention to yourself and to the flock. So this is the very, one of the older elders' book. This one, a lot of people were under this elders' book when they were abused, when things happened. So there's nothing in here protecting a minor from abuse, nothing at all in here. And this is just how it is. It's just a straightforward little book. Now, this book here, it's caused them a lot of issues. It's the next book, Shepherding the Flock of God. And it has more of a table of contents, appointments, deletions. It's more like the 2024 Elders book, assisting those that are weak. Preparing for judicial hearing. It's all about judicial hearing procedures, appeal hearing, matters related to disfellowshipping. You see, if you were to open this Elders book, you would see it has a lot to do with judicial and appointing elders. So it's kind of a harsh book, but they call that Shepherding the Flock. And we move over to the 2024 Elders book. I did this one online. We have a playlist for this. I read the whole thing. And it's put together like a manual, how elders work. That's one that we talked a lot about, how elders work. Right out the gate, it says obey the governing body. And they have a whole section, on medical matters. They have a whole section on child abuse, pornography. It's all up front here. Appeal hearings, reinstatements, disassociation, all the meaty stuff right out there with subtitles and everything. So that's how that one was laid out. And then we get over to the very latest one. This is brand new, September 2025, Shepherding the Flock of God. Very simple looking cover. Versus this one's more institutional looking. This one's more shepherding looking. The 2010 one over here, it kind of had a more of a shepherding look. And then the earlier version, it was a hardcover, and it was just more of a secret manual that the elders had. You'd see that. Elders all had it, and they'd go to their little meeting in the back. So these are all the books. So this is the softened one this year, 2025. Not much in here, how elders work, shepherding, field ministry, meetings, appointments, deletions, determining whether a committee should be formed, leading individuals to repentance, helping individuals to return, child abuse, medical matters. So they don't have as much, out in your face, but then they have this appendix, the addendum. So then this one's all about a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe we might go through this section by section one time. Let us know in the comments if this interests you. You go into each of these, and there's a whole pile of stuff talks about. So it's interesting. Gated communities, no trespassing signs, video recording doorbells. What did they say about that? Do not speak or show video through these devices unless you have confirmed that someone is listening. Giving a presentation in the hopes that it will be recorded and watched or listened to at a later time has led to irritation on the part of householders. Additionally, we should use discernment in our personal conversation while at the door, keeping in mind that our conversation may be overheard, recorded, or even posted on social media. And you see, in most countries, you're allowed to with this kind of stuff. So interesting. They're addressing all kinds of little issues, I guess, that they run into. Then you get into legal matters, public information department, so on and so forth. So the point that we want to discuss with this shepherding book is we're going to go right to 9 here, child abuse, and it's right here. So I have it highlighted. Let's see if I can blow this up a bit. Here we go. So this is chapter 9. Right here we see that. It goes on to just explain all about it. But here's the section we want to look at. This is the illegal part, the criminal activity that is hidden here. And it says, from a congregation standpoint, child sexual abuse, CSA, refers to the following: an adult guilty of sexually abusing a minor who was a young child, or an adult guilty of sexually involvement with a minor who is approaching adulthood but was not a willing participant. So this is where it differs. The law says no, grooming is grooming, adults grooming young people, even if they're willing, doesn't matter. The young people aren't fully developed. They really don't know how to manage their minds around sexuality, and that's why these laws exist. So here's where Watchtower is breaking the rules all over the world. Number 7, from a congregational standpoint of view, CSA, I'm going to call it, does not refer to the following. So it does not refer to a following. So if a minor is willing, they're saying it's not CSA. But you see, the whole world says it is. But Watchtower says it isn't. But the whole world says it is. So who do you believe? Well, let's carry on. And who is approaching adulthood? So now they're saying if you're taking young people, 15, 16, like that, 14, they're approaching adulthood. They're kind of drawing a distinction. Who's approaching adulthood is involved in sexual activity with an adult who's a few years older than a minor. In the one case I know about, the guy, the so-called brother, was 27, and he was grooming a 15-year-old, and eventually the 15-year-old got of age and they got married. But there was lots of disfellowshipping that went on. He wasn't disfellowshipped. She was. 15-year-old was, because she was willing, you see. So they want to make an example out of things like that. And that's how they really punish people wrongly in the organization. So a minor who is a willing participant, in Watchtower's eyes, they break the law and they say, no, they're willing, so it's not CSA. Gets thrown out. Doesn't go to the police, doesn't go anywhere. And the abuse continues. Now, generally speaking, minors, they're saying, who have engaged in sexual misconduct with one another or sexting one another. However, regardless of ages of those involved, such misconduct is serious. Elders should be guided by Chapter 7, paragraphs 28 to 31, Appendix A, paragraphs 11 to 14, and they should call the service department if they have questions regarding a specific situation. And then they go on to say, viewing child pornography. However, viewing child pornography is still a serious violation of Jehovah's standards. I don't know how come they said it like that. Viewing it, and however, viewing it is still a serious. It's a crime, for crying out loud. But this is how they're wording it. I'm just showing you guys the receipts. This is how they word it in their elders book. Really flaky wording. Now, then they go on to say, depending on the frequency. Come on. Once, we got a problem. So they're going on depending on the frequency and the extent of the wrongdoing, the matter could be, you see, could be very questionable, handled by means of strong counsel. Doesn't mean it's going to be. Now, in some cases, it will be necessary to form a committee. You see, they haven't even gotten to a committee. It's not even serious to them. It's like catching someone smoking. Now, if the elders determine that it is necessary to form a committee, they should contact the service department. And that's where they're going. If you're going to open up a committee that's 3 elders, you got to call the service department, the legal. They got to figure out their legal liability here. That's what this is all about, folks. Legal liability. Yeah. Now, they even go on to say it again here. And here's where they're breaking the law. The congregation never considers a victim of child sex abuse as having committed wrongdoing. The victim has committed wrongdoing. But if the body of elders believes that a committee should be formed to meet with a minor because she, what about him? Well, no, this is about her. She confessed to being a willing participant with an adult. So you see, if in all the countries, all the laws that we talked about, it's a felony for an adult, it's jail time. A lot of countries, jail time for an adult to have relations with a minor. Very simple. Even if she's willing, the adult will go to jail, will be convicted. Now, 2 elders, they're saying, should call the service department before proceeding. So here she confessed, and now they're just going to call the service department and get a pat in the back and say, yeah, just shovel this under the carpet. Now, before forming a committee for CSA, please review Chapter 6, Paragraph 9. They want their elders to know everything about this because it's so serious now. This is where they're getting a lot of lawsuits that they have to pay out because they haven't handled this correctly, and they're still not in compliance with the law. Now, if the person is repentant and is reproved, the reproof should be announced to the congregation the next week. If who's reproved? The guy that committed this or the child? For the child abuse, right? It's very flaky wording how they're doing this. Meet with the minor because she confessed to be willing. 2 elders should call the service department. This is complete obstruction of justice, folks. Right here in plain sight. This is the elders training manual to train this is how Jehovah's Witnesses are trained. 2025, brand new material. They're training these elders to be like counselors, but to brush it under the carpet. If they're a willing participant, throw it out. It's not a case. And then they're saying proof should be announced to the congregation, reproof. The reproof should be announced to the congregation at the next midweek meeting if the person's reproved. So in 1 week, let's say you're an abuser, a child abuser, maybe they didn't even get all the information. There's nothing in here saying get his computer information. You see, the police would confiscate his material, his computers, if they found out an adult was having relations with a minor. And they'd see if this adult is into child CSA stuff. You see, there's nothing in this elder's book to protect the congregation, folks. Within a week, you can't rehabilitate these people in a week. But within a week, they figure they got this all covered, and they're going to give an announcement that this person's reproved in a week. Anyways, if the child's CSA abuse had not been established at the time of the person's removal from the congregation or at the time of his disassociation, he therefore submits a letter requesting reinstatement. if the abuse had been established at the time of his removal or at the time of his disassociation. And he therefore submits a letter requesting reinstatement. So that's all you have to do. This is why this is a shelter. This is all handled in-house. CSA folks, these elders aren't equipped to handle child protection. They have proven, Jehovah's Witnesses, elders, and the faithful discreet slave has proven to obstruct justice all over the world in this manner. And we're seeing it for ourselves here, folks. How they get into this, unbaptized, baptized, who committed it, the abuse, is repentant, will remain in the congregation. You see, nothing's going to the police, nothing's going to outside counselors for help. These are all unqualified elders following this manual that's put out by 11 men, and the 11 men in New York, they call them the faithful, discreet slave. And these men, along with all the elders and all the congregations now, are all culpable in obstructing justice. So this is pretty serious. We're going to close off there. It goes on, moving to another congregation. There's steps that they take. And then we get into medical matters. They want to be your durable power of attorney for lots of reasons. Once they're in charge of you, they'll kill you when it comes to a blood transfusion if you need one. They'll kill you because they will resist until you die. Durable power of attorney. Never, ever give them a durable power of attorney. And folks, keep living your life with love. And until next time, stay away from these elders. Go to the police if you're in trouble. If there's any CSA going on, go right to the police. Skip the elders. That's my advice. See you on the next video. Bye for now.